So for the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability in dairying, the changes in the dairy markets, and the potential impacts, the opportunities that might bring, and some of the challenges as well. So, okay, so Dairygold, who are we? Dairygold are Ireland's leading farmer-owned dairy cooperative, and I suppose something I'll highlight throughout my presentation is the fact that we are a cooperative and we're farmer-owned. So in total we have just over 8,000 shareholders, farmer shareholders. We have 3,000 milk suppliers, and in total they supply about 1.15 billion litres of milk in 2015. We have just over 1,100 employees, and our turnover in 2015 was €785 million. In terms of the business structure, Dairygold has three business divisions. We have an agri division which supplies input to farmers. We have a retail division primarily based in Munster, so co-op stores and co-op superstores. And we have a food ingredients business, and the food ingredients division is approximately 75% of our turnover. So that's, I suppose, the major division in the business. What type of products do we produce? So there's the mix for 2015. So it's a mix of cheese and specialty cheese products, casein and butter, whole milk powder, and ingredients for the infant milk formula market. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about the industry development and in terms of moving into value-add areas, because one of the things there which you may notice is some of these products are commodities. So milk powders, cheese, casein are sold in commodity markets, and the industry is moving more towards the IMF nutrition area to add value and better return for farmers. Okay, so dairy markets. So I suppose, you know, there's been a lot of talk recently about the milk price in Ireland and the decline in milk price and the challenges for dairy markets, but the long-term view on dairy market growth. So with a growing population, world population, increased urbanization, the growth of the middle classes, particularly in Asia and in Africa, and in the Middle East, and the westernization of diets, the long-term view is there will be about a 2% growth in dairy annually. So albeit there have been challenges in the last probably 18 months, particularly in relation to slowdown in the Chinese economy, the price of oil and the Middle East purchasing power, and the ban on Russian exports into Russia from Europe. The long-term view is that there will be growth of approximately 2% per annum. What does that mean for Dairygold? This is just a picture of milk supplied up to 2015. You'll notice that the profile was fairly flat up to 2014. The reason for that was milk quotas. So the milk quotas were abolished in 2015. So in 2015, we processed 1.15 billion litres of milk. That was about an 18% increase in milk volume in a single year, so that was very significant. And the view out to 2020 is we're going to see growth of between 50 and 60%, so from 2011 to 2020. So the industry needs to invest in capacity to deal with that growth, and also in finding markets for those products, and in adding value to the milk as well, as I mentioned earlier, and not just dealing in commodity markets. So one of the challenges with that is doing that in a sustainable way. I'm just going to talk a little bit about sustainability and what that actually means for Dairygold. So sustainability for Dairygold, I suppose, starts with regulatory compliance. It's getting the basics right. It's a foundation of making sure you comply with environmental regulations and various other regulations, primarily EU-driven. On top of that, it means applying standards. So some of the standards we apply are things like ISO 50001, which is energy management standard. There's ethical trading standards. So there's lots of different standards which we have applied in the business to basically give us a foundation for sustainability. On top of that then, we're looking at 4 different areas primarily focused for sustainability. So we're looking at farms, we're looking at our supply chain, which is transport and manufacturing, processing. We're looking at people and community, and various target areas there, carbon emissions, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in later slides, looking at water, looking at waste, looking at community initiatives, people development, those type of areas, ultimately contributing to a sustainable business. So that's the model in broad terms that Dairygold are looking at in terms of sustainability, and that's sustainability both environmentally, economically, and socially. Okay. So what have we done in the last 30 years on sustainability? So Dairygold, I suppose, if we look back to 1986, we're the first dairy to convert to natural gas. We installed CHP, which is an energy efficient technology for producing heat and electricity. We have done a lot of work on farm level, investing with Teagasc to develop our farmers and develop the efficiency of our farms. And in 2009, we achieved the Energy Management Standard 50001 for our manufacturing. So this is, again, driving energy efficiency at processing level. A big project in 2012, we invested in anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion is basically taking our process waste and is converting it into biogas. And that biogas is used to provide heat to our plants. So that directly displaces natural gas usage, and it reduces our overall carbon emissions. So again, at a processing level, that's very important, and with European targets around reducing processing carbon emissions. In more recent years, there's been significant investment by Dairygold in processing capacity and sustainability. There's been investment in Mitchelstown and powder processing, and subsequently in 2014, a significant over €80 million investment in Mallow to create a dairy nutrition facility. So this is moving into that value add area. This facility is built to the highest standards with the ability to be able to produce infant milk formula so almost to pharmaceutical grade standards for dairy processing. We're on a plan to move into that area over the next number of years. And finally then, I suppose in 2016, we were recognized with 2 green awards for manufacturing and transport from a sustainability perspective. Just going to talk a little bit more about the areas I mentioned earlier. I suppose one other point I will make as well, as a co-op, and this is something we're finding more and more, is that as a co-op with a direct link to primary producers, we're owned by the primary producer, we have an ability to influence sustainability at farm level, and that's actually critical for our customers, because farm level is where a significant amount of impact occurs, both in terms of carbon emissions and other factors. So that's something we can offer our customers. So supply chain, we've done a lot of work in supply chain, so that's our manufacturing and transport. I mentioned the biogas, I mentioned the energy efficiency projects, the investments we've made. We've also looked at water efficiency, so we've improved the efficiency of water usage in one of our cheese plants by over 20%. We focus on transport. Milk transport is actually a very significant contributor to carbon emissions in the dairy industry, because milk needs to be collected from each farm, and we have, as I say, 3,000 milk suppliers. So as you can imagine, there's actually quite a lot of diesel used to collect that milk. So again, focusing on that, we've delivered 6% fuel efficiency improvements in 2013. And finally, I mentioned the investments, expanding sustainably, investing in energy efficient and water efficient technologies. On the community side, we do a lot of initiatives. Dairygold is very much embedded in the rural community. It makes a significant contribution to the rural economy in terms of milk price, but also in terms of activities like the Rapid Pink initiative. Some of you who travel the highways and byways of Munster would have seen pink bale wrap and making a contribution to the Irish Cancer Society. We also have gotten involved in some STEM initiatives with local secondary schools, encouraging female secondary school students to get involved in science, technology, engineering, and maths. For some reason that jumped on. On the people side then, we've invested heavily in developing our people, and IMI leadership development, health and well-being, and also we have developed green teams within the business. I want to focus a little bit on farm because, as I've mentioned, farm is where a lot of the impact is seen now and where a lot of our customers are expecting us to focus in terms of sustainability. So as I mentioned, we're a cooperative. Our suppliers are family farmers in the Munster region. We've rolled out the Sustainable Dairy Assurance Scheme, which is a Board BA scheme for quality assurance and sustainability at farm level. At the moment, 95% of our milk suppliers are signed up to this scheme. So it sets a minimum standard for quality assurance and sustainability at farm level. And one of the advantages Ireland has is grass-based dairy production is actually very carbon efficient, and our cows spend up to 300 days at grass each year. We've invested heavily with Teagasc. We're currently in the middle of a 3-year program investing in farm development, knowledge transfer of best practice to farmers to improve their profitability and improve their sustainability. We also have an agri-business where we can trace key inputs into milk production. We have suppliers who supply grain, which is converted directly into feed, which feed our cows, and we have an advisory service where we help our farmers to improve and develop more efficient practices. And finally, I suppose an area of innovation, in the dairy industry in the last number of years has been genetics and animal health. And again, we're involved in a business that helps farmers improve the genetic merit of their herds through breeding, through improved breeding, and that's one of the areas we're focused on to improve overall milk production efficiency. Just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about greenhouse gas emissions, because this is one of the real challenges that the dairy industry has in terms of expansion. So greenhouse gas emissions primarily come from cows, from methane emissions from cows, and also from fertilizers applied to the land, nitrous oxide emissions. Ireland has a significant portion of its emissions coming from agriculture, because agriculture is such a significant part of the economy. But at an EU level, Irish dairy production has been recognised as being the most carbon efficient in Europe. Now, this was a 2011 EU report, along with Austria. So we produce the lowest amount of carbon per kilogram of milk produced in Europe. But we need to do more. So what are we doing about carbon emissions? So Board BIA and Teagasc have developed a tool which is developing a carbon footprint at individual farm level. So farms are carbon footprinted on an 18-month cycle. So all suppliers are being carbon footprinted on an 18-month cycle. And they're being benchmarked against particular areas that will deliver improvement in carbon. And these areas, some of the areas there are improved genetics, so looking at the efficiency of milk production, looking at longer grazing seasons, so that requires less inputs from imported feed, which is less carbon efficient. Improved nitrogen use, so this is about grass, growing more grass and using less inputs to do that. And better energy efficiency on farms. So farmers are doing things like installing solar heating for water on farms, using plate heat exchanger technology to recover energy from milk cooling. So these are the type of activities. So there's a lot of activity going on in this area. So where we are at the moment, the outcomes from this will be improved carbon footprint, but importantly also as well, an improved economic return for the farmer, because if we're doing this and it's going to cost the farmer, that's going to be a major challenge, particularly in the current climate of lower milk prices. So what's next? So that first cycle of carbon audits has happened on our farms. We're now looking at that data. We're now looking at what's feeding into the carbon footprint that we have, and we're entering into a second cycle of audits now. So the next step is to focus on the activities at farm level that will continue to drive improvements in that carbon footprint, continue to drive carbon efficiency, drive economic returns for our milk suppliers, and also drive economic returns at a business level for us as well, and also in terms of reputation and brand development for our customers. So I think that's it. Thank you.